Hello, and thank you for joining us here today at Fair Talk by Fair Farms. My name's Amanda Higgins. In this very last episode for 2024, I'm excited to be joined by three special guest panellists. Wayne Shields from Peninsula Fresh Organics, Abigail Woods from Barado Farms, and Paul Gazzola from Gazzola Farms. Firstly, I'd like to say thank you so much for all of you for taking time out to come and join me here today. I know that you all play a very active, hands-on role within your businesses, so I'm very truly grateful about you coming to spend some time to chat. I'll throw to you first, Wayne, if you'd like to just give me a little bit of an idea as to what your business does and how long you've been in the industry for, and then we'll go to Abby, and then we'll move to Paul.
Thanks, Amanda. Wayne Shields. We've been organic farmers for about 15 years now, almost. Down on the Mornington Peninsula and also up on the Murray River. We have another second site where we do a lot of growing. So we've been certified organic since 2010. And that's been a lot of fun. So I've sort of had 15 years of compliance around that sort of stuff, which has sort of given me a good basis for going forward with that.
And how long have you been in the industry altogether?
I've grown up in it. Dad was a veggie grower, and when he retired, I went and worked for other blokes, and I was conventional till I was about 40 years old.
Yeah. Okay.
And then saw the light and went green.
Well done, Abby.
I've been in the industry for about 16 years.
Yeah.
So I've been with Barado Farms for the last 5.5 years. Prior to that, I was produce buying for a processor. I learnt a lot through the produce buying in regards to being certified, and now I'm actually looking after the certification for our business.
Wonderful. Good on you. Paul.
Hi, Amanda.
Hello.
A bit like Wayne, been in the industry my whole life in some shape or form, but mostly as a family business. So currently I'm in business with my two brothers, and my dad pretty much semi-retired now. We're on the Mornington Peninsula also on 2 farms. We supply all the major markets up the eastern seaboard and occasionally over to WA. Go to Darwin twice a week, major retailers, and have a mix of labour from farm workers to labour hire to direct employees. So that will keep us fairly busy.
Yeah, good. Well, thank you very much. Thanks for coming in and joining us today. So today we've come together to acknowledge that we are knee-deep in compliance requirements, and we know that the demand for compliance absolutely isn't going to go anywhere. So I'd like for us to discuss how your three businesses actually integrate compliance into its everyday, day-to-day operations, and how you've managed to overcome some of those challenges. So Abby, you're palm. Paul, you've got some labour that comes through palm as well. Wayne, you're organic. Paul, let's start with you. You're a 3rd generation farmer in the Mornington Peninsula. You're currently the president of AusVeg Victoria. So can you share with us how a business which is nearly 94 years old has actually adapted to the changing compliance requirements?
It's changed a lot. So when my grandfather started farming, compliance was turning up to work sober.
Yeah.
Pretty much. To today, where there's so many layers that we have to deal with on a daily basis. But it hasn't happened overnight. We've evolved into that over a period of time where, we started recording stuff on paper, having reams of it in filing cabinets, which I'm sure many people have still got, to moving to more electronic record keeping. So what we do today, it's still a job that has to be done, but it's not as onerous as what we may think it is.
Okay.
We integrate it into our everyday activities.
Yep.
And there's been a lot of positives that have come out of it over the years. Definitely.
Yeah, good. I think that's always a benefit if there's a byproduct benefit of a system. Wayne, you're the director of Peninsula Fresh Organics. You're the chair of the board for the Australian Certified Organic, ACO, and you're an active member of the Australian Organic Industries Working Group. Can you tell us what on earth made you go down a voluntary path to implement organic standards on your farm? I know you said you saw the light and you were keen to be green, but what sparked that?
I was starting from scratch at the age of 40, and you know, you need every bit of help you can get to get a foothold in the market.
Yeah.
And conventional farming seemed to be pretty well, those guys were doing it pretty well. There didn't seem to be a lot of opportunity to get in and, you know, be viable as a business. You're either going to stay very small and live on the fringes and, you know, live on the poverty line basically. So I had to do something different. So I went down the organic path, but I had that conventional mindset. So I went a bit harder than the majority of the conventional guys. And
So when you say conventional mindset, you mean scalability of the business?
well, you know, conventional guys know how to work. You got to
Yeah.
be pretty efficient and go hard.
Yeah.
So I had that mindset and I had that discipline, I suppose, and I just applied it to organics. And a lot of the organic guys originally, you know, their first inclination was to head for the hills and grow on the side of a hill.
Bit hippie.
Yep, and that's where it started. You know, it's evolved from there, but so that gave me a bit of a start, and I just, you know, there's a lot more opportunity in organics because the market there was a want in the market, there was a hole in the market, so I've just helped to fill that. So that's why I went that way, and I really enjoyed that change. It's been great for me. I'm a better grower now that I'm organic than when I was conventional.
Yeah. So your choice to go organic was driven because you could see an opportunity for yourself in starting a business with a new market option. Yep. Good. Very good. Abby, as the technical and admin manager out at Barado, not only do you look after food safety and compliance, you also look after the PALM scheme because you're an approved employer as well, which happens to be another layer of regulation. You were telling me the other day that you were also looking at some environmental accreditation voluntarily.
I think that's the way things are going, so it's worth starting to look at that now and build it into any improvements that you're going to make on the farm.
Wonderful. Excellent. So what kind of systems do you have in place that keep things on track?
So we are accredited for Fresh Care, Fair Farms and a PALM scheme approved employer. We've gone from one person doing paper-based to myself coming into the business doing transferring that all into electronically. We've now got 3 people who are looking after QA, HR and myself overseeing those operations. I think one of the main things is to try to keep it simple. And look for similarities between each of the systems because there are similarities. A basic one would be the org chart. One says you must show the person responsible for HR, the other one says food safety, so you just combine it. That's a very basic one, but if you look for the similarities, it really helps make it more achievable. Yeah.
And like Paul, you would have started off with paper-based systems and moved to electronic at some point?
Paper-based. It was then electronic, like scanning and very, very hands-on, very time-consuming. So now we're moving more towards direct entry of data. So the person responsible for that job, so the person spraying, enters that data, and that saves time yet again. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's good. So there's an efficiency that's
Yes.
come out of that. So I do think it's important to recognise that you all come from larger businesses. You've got a bit of a structure there, and I don't want to say that you've got the luxury of having additional resources, but a lot of our viewers and a lot of our growers are mum and dad operators, or they're very, very small teams. What advice do you have for them which could potentially help streamline their operations? What are some key learnings over your time within your businesses that you might be able to share and have some insights as to just how to make things a little bit more efficient from a day-to-day basis?
Before they jump in, look at what they really need to meet their market requirements.
Yeah.
You don't need to go the whole hog just to supply a wholesale market potentially.
Yeah.
So that certain customers have certain demands on what they want you to have. So look carefully what they need before they go in and say, I've got to do this, this and this. but also, I suppose, go after the low-hanging fruit.
No
The stuff
pun
that's
intended.
easy, the stuff that's easy to achieve first. And they sink their teeth into those first,
Yeah.
and it gets their head around the compliance issues and the systems that they need to build, rather than trying to do the whole lot in one hit. So, and build capability slowly.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do overnight.
Bite size
Yeah,
chunks. How to eat
Absolutely.
the elephant, yeah? One
Yeah.
bite at a time.
absolutely.
Anything from you?
To build on that, identify the areas where they may need to look at for certification and focus on those first. Keep it very simple. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just make sure that what you've got as a requirement is met. Don't go above and beyond.
Yep.
Meet the requirements to start with.
Yep.
And later on, if you choose to go higher, then that's your choice.
Yeah. And Wayne, what do you think?
Well, it all depends where you want to take your business. So, like, it's very much what Paul said. So, if it's going to make you unhappy to have to jump all these hoops to get into a market you don't really want to be in, well, what's the point? Some people want to, paddle around in the shallow end of the pool. That's no disrespect, but I mean, that's where they want to be, and they might not have to, chase these hurdles at all. So they've got to understand where they want to take it.
Yeah.
And then they'll know what steps they've got to take.
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing from you in regards to some of those key learnings is identify what some of the key criteria are going to be that you need to address from a compliance perspective. Have a look for any kind of duplication that you can manage successfully and understand where your business wants to go. Do you think, is that a safe snapshot? Do you think start paper-based or?
Too. I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, it's get that information before you jump in the pool effectively. That's the key.
Understand what the need is. Understand where your business is going to go. Yeah.
Some certifications open doors for you. If you don't intend to take your business through those doors, what's the point in getting that certification?
Yeah, this is true. This is true. So in managing various compliance programs and then the systems that are required for those and then the audits that come out of that, we know that the compliance burden or the compliance fatigue, etc., can absolutely feel very real. Have you got some suggestions for growers, either in time management or get ready or don't leave it until the 11th month on the 11th hour before the auditor's coming up? What's some suggestions?
What Abby commented on earlier about finding the similarities between, especially if you're doing multiple programs. I've seen many people, they'll do a manual for this program, manual for that program, and when a lot of it can be combined, you know what I mean? So it's understanding the systems to begin with, and then flushing out the similarities to minimise your workload. That's been key to what we've done. I mean, we started with 2 QA manuals initially. Now we run one, and it covers both standards. It's made things a lot simpler to maintain. So the record keeping's been minimised by going electronically. So there's a lot of things you can do to streamline the process. But again, it comes back to understanding, knowing what's out there and knowing what your requirements are.
Yeah. I think, do you use any software, Paul, that you'd be happy to sort of share? And you've obviously moved from paper to electronic, I imagine, spreadsheets then to software.
So Live Farm is one of the key softwares that we use on farm for a lot of our compliance, from tracking our harvesting and traceability through to QA section and also training. So it has a lot of facets to it, which work really well.
Which are all important and all,
Yes,
key
absolutely.
record keeping criteria
Yes.
that you need to meet too.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and then we use another program, 37 South, for a lot of our dispatch and sales side of things.
Okay, good, good. Abby, any recommendations for any sort of apps or software?
Started using OnSide to check in and check out visitors,
Yep.
but also to identify risks and hazards on the farms for people visiting the farm.
Okay, so an OH&S and
OH&S,
Lens as
yes,
well, great.
Yep. And we're just starting to build into it templates to do checklists via the app.
Yeah, good.
Yep.
And do your employees use that on a mobile phone or an iPad?
On a
or?
mobile phone or an iPad, yes.
Yeah, okay, great. And everyone has access to that?
Everyone has access.
Yeah,
Yes.
good.
We've started using that as well and finding it quite good.
Yeah, wonderful. Excellent. Wayne, any software or app solutions for our viewers?
Well, we originally, we were paper based, and because we had to try and fit the certification, all the requirements into my workforce, and we were all sort of older blokes, and we were all very much just paper based.
Just a pen and paper.
Pen and paper.
It
but
wasn't a
that-
slate and stone, but it was pen and paper.
Look, it got it very hard, and it was hard to track. So eventually we sort of built our own system, which is pretty basic, just Soho Forms, which is an online sort of thing, pretty cheap to sort of set up ourselves. So we did that. You know, there's QR code, there's a QR code hashtag in every tractor. So they
Everyone knows what a QR code now is, right?
Yep, so they get in there and they take a thing and, you know, they tick off their sheet when they're in the tractor and away they go, and everything gets done like that now. So, and that all goes to the cloud, and then it's all accessible for when we come up for our audits. So,
Yeah.
and I haven't had to, you know, worry about it too much now because it all happens.
Was the implementation hard?
Look, you had to change attitudes,
Okay.
but once, you know, once the boss put his foot down, and he was probably the hardest guy to convince.
Always the way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um,
Most resistant to change often.
yeah, why do I have to do that? But yeah, eventually we got everyone on board, and we can tell whether they're doing it or not. So as soon as, you know, you notice a hole in the system somewhere, you can plug it. But everyone's got a mobile phone now, and you know, it's hard to get the phones out of their hands, so they're always willing to pick it up. So you know, and they're gonna take a photo, and then they're gonna check their text messages or whatever they're gonna do.
Of course. Part of
So it
life.
always gets done now. So
They're always in communication. They're always in contact.
that's right.
Like
So-
Wayne said, it's making that activity part of their everyday job. You know what I mean? Make it. It's what they have to do as part of their activity every day.
Embed
Yeah.
it. Normalise it. Normalise
It's
it.
definitely made things a lot simpler.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of the discipline now, so it just happens.
Yeah,
and
good.
And then you don't ever notice it. And then what I do notice is coming up to our audits, there's not the rush and panic that we used to have.
Yeah. Because I do think that that's a genuine thing, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
scrambling. When you don't have a system in place, you're scrambling to think, have I got the paperwork I need? Is it in the file it needs to be in? What have I got to have for this audit? What have I got to have for that audit?
Yeah.
So,
So
The
that,
direct entry from when you're doing the job into the system
yep.
cuts that down, and you're already audit ready all the time because the paperwork is in there.
yeah.
We recently bought a spray drone, so we do all our spraying with the drone now, and the benefit of that, there's actually, we can get a readout of exactly what we sprayed, when we sprayed, how we sprayed, and it's all there, and that just goes straight up into the system now too. So it's just another tick along the box, and these things are happening automatically now. Whereas years ago, you know, it wasn't even that long ago. You had to check the wind, like you said, and what was that, and how many litres of this product, and you know, what date did we do it, and what time of day was it, and yeah, that's all gone now. That's all just electronically banged straight up into the cloud.
Yeah, easy.
Yeah.
And I think, Paul, you were saying earlier on about using weather monitors and that sort of stuff, that you were doing the same. There wasn't a
Yeah.
need to
So
have to.
we run our own weather stations as well, so same for that spraying compliance. You need to track your weather and wind and everything else.
Yeah.
So now
And
it's
that's gotten you out of a pickle in
absolutely,
the
it
past.
has in the past. We've actually utilised that
Do
that
you mind
service.
sharing about what happened on that
Well,
one?
we had an incident where we were spraying a chemical at the back end of the farm, and it had a bit of an odour to it.
Yeah.
And when we started spraying, the wind was going in the right direction, away from the neighbours, and everything was fine. And it was in the evening, so it was getting dark. And then, while he was in the process of doing the job, while you're in the cabin, you can't feel the wind change, and the wind changed direction during the job, and there was an odour drift that went across to the neighbours. And yeah, we got a slap on the wrist for that. But the ability to go into the weather station data and find that the wind was going the right way when we started, because you'd log the time you start and finish, and it showed that it changed during the activity. Sort of got us out of the shit, so to say.
Yep.
A little bit, because the
Well,
intention,
the
we had
data
the
was
right
there.
intention when we started, but unfortunately we got caught out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And I think what I'm hearing is if it's not expensive to implement, use an electronic system where possible and have it cloud-based. Abby, you were mentioning earlier on that potentially some of your workers who English is a second language and using that app, there may have been some challenges with that. How have you overcome that for your team?
At the moment, we haven't overcome it. It is very difficult.
Yeah.
We do now, we've been in the PALM scheme for quite some time, so we have a lot of return workers and they start to step up and become interpreters, and they take on a leadership role where they can teach people as well. So that's been very helpful.
Yeah.
And they also appreciate being given that opportunity as well.
Yeah, good. So they're familiarising themselves
Yes.
with data and
Yes,
that
yeah,
also.
and it's good that they see those things, because people don't understand why we do things the way we do, and I feel it's really good to show people why they're doing that,
Yeah.
because that makes them understand and they're more inclined to do that because they understand why they're
But
doing
they
it.
also learn faster too. Telling someone to do a job I've found in the past is, it's just a robot action, but if they understand why they're doing it,
Yes, yeah.
they learn faster and they appreciate the
And
job
they take
better.
pride in
They
it.
take pride in what they
Yeah.
do. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a way to bring people along for the ride.
Yeah, take them on the journey.
Yeah.
Understand and explain the why behind it. So there's some ownership, I suppose,
Yes.
in that task.
Which
And
is
that-
beneficial to certification, that people do take ownership, because it's very hard to manage the whole thing as a single person, but if everybody's taking ownership, it makes it a lot more easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to give some growers advice if they were considering certification or considering a compliance program of some sort, would be to get your staff involved.
Yeah, and
how
take
would you-
ownership.
And how would you think to do that effectively?
I think basing it on the sections of the certification, so the person who is spraying would take on that responsibility, because they're the best person to say that we've met our requirements. They're the
Yeah.
best person to fill in the paperwork.
But it's also identifying the people who want to take that role on as well.
Yeah.
Because there's people that just come to work and they just want to work and do their job and go home. But there's people who actually take pride in being given responsibility. So it's identifying that
Yeah.
person amongst the teams that actually takes pride in the fact that they have a responsibility, and not necessarily they have to be in charge of people, but they have something that elevates them above the rest of the people potentially.
Yeah.
So
Sense of
and-
ownership and
yes,
accountability.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the trick is identifying them.
Yeah. And when you do, hang on to them.
Absolutely.
Hang on
and
to
we're
them.
the same as Abby. We've got a lot of our palm guys that we've had returning over
Yep.
multiple years. And you can see they do take on a role of responsibility, even if it's just overseeing their group of people or whatever it might be, but they take pride in that, you know, and the other people look up to them with a sense of respect as well.
Yeah.
So
Wayne, have you got anything that you do uniquely in your organic world that I suppose you'd have a certain set of culture around compliance with the organic ethos? It brings a different aspect as well too, doesn't it, I think, from a worker perspective?
Yeah, look, we've always gone our own way, so we've got a lot of long-term workers. We don't have the PALM scheme. We're pretty close to Melbourne, and we've got our core group of staff that have been with me since day one. So I've got a heap of Vietnamese that work for me, and their own culture, and they sort of run themselves to a degree. I give them a little bit of latitude, and that works for me and it works for them.
Yeah.
These guys have been with me so long, they're all getting long service leave.
Yeah, right.
It's great.
That's a
and
good problem to have.
It is, because at the end of the day, people look at me thinking, say, well, how can you afford to give them long service leave? And I said, well, how can I afford not to? I wouldn't want to lose them, because these guys have been with me for 7 or 8 years, and I've only had to train them once. I haven't had to train another guy every year. I don't have to be the first bloke at work anymore.
Yep. It's a nice
because,
problem to have or
these
not have.
guys will come in and they'll start because they know what to do. They've been with me for so long. that's just gold. So and that really helps with my business because I've got the two sites. So you know, I'm probably less of a farmer and more of a fireman. So I run around, fix issues, and sometimes it's labour related, sometimes it's growing related, sometimes it's weather related. Either way, I'm fixing something somewhere, and I don't know where it is. Tomorrow I'll probably be in New South Wales. Next day I'll be back here fixing something. So I need a good, stable workforce that can manage themselves. So that's the one sort of thing that I do, that I look around at a lot of the other farms near me that don't do that so much, or they don't have the ability to do it. And it's the same up at my New South Wales farm. It's the same 7 people that have been there for 7, 8 years now.
Yeah.
I have to agree with Wayne. Retention of staff is
key.
It is very important because it makes our life easier. And we speak to farms that have a high rotation of backpackers or something like that through their seasons, and it's like they're constantly pulling their hair out, retraining.
And that's expensive,
It
right?
is expensive, and it's not It's not as productive, I don't believe, as having the same people there every day. As Wayne said, they come to work, they know their job. You send them out, and you know it's going to get done properly. So it adds to your quality control is taken care
That's
of
a big
because
thing.
it's massive.
Yep.
All right, and you're not dealing with having to find out whether these people are legitimate every day, or whether they got their visas, or whether they checked that, because it's all been done.
Checks.
Having to do that every day is so onerous.
Well,
so
it's costly.
it is
time
costly.
and
It's
money
costly.
and
So
resources.
stability in staff is a massive plus.
Yeah.
A massive plus for us.
Yeah. So have you had, in your experience, any pushback, with the compliance that's come through? Have you had any pushback from staff not wanting to step up and take responsibility and accountability, or pitch into compliance or new compliance programs? I know we spoke earlier about sort of take them on the journey. Has that just been a natural default within your business, and that's been a benefit?
Pretty much. I mean, as I said, the whole Fair Farms certification, it's legitimising what we already do to a degree. It's giving us a paper trail to what we're already doing. So has it changed our culture within the business? Probably not as much as some people may think. QA had a bigger impact in our business than this has. Because I believe we tend to look after our workers as best as possible, because we want them to come back. A happy worker's a productive worker, and they come back every day. Sober, hopefully.
No, and Abby, any byproducts from compliance that you found on your farm with Barado? Has there sort of been something which was surprisingly of benefit that you weren't anticipating?
With Fair Farms, it made me realise that our health and safety aspect of the farm, while we had everything in place, we didn't actually have a proper system for monitoring. So Fair Farms really helped us step up our game with health and safety, which is really good. With our staff, the introduction of, we showed them that we are actually looking out for their welfare. By getting that accreditation, they understand that we are looking out for their welfare. They're more aware of our policies because there is a requirement to communicate policies. And I also find that with the management team, while they tend to do their part of the job, having a broader knowledge of the HR side of things, that's really helped them as well.
Well, that's great to hear. That's really good. Wayne, you're a Fair Farms member, and whether it's Fair Farms compliance or any other compliance program, that there's been a benefit that you weren't expecting. Have you got any stories to where you can sort of think, actually, that was really gold that came out of that?
Oh, look, I've got a lot of stories, but around Fair Farms, what it's done for me, it's formalised the informal around the farm. There was a lot of things we were doing, but there wasn't a process around it. There's more of a process. Look, we've still got to get better. We're evolving. We started as a very small business and only do farmers markets. 14 years ago, and now we're sort of supplying I'm probably the second or third or fourth biggest organic grower in the country now. But so we've been on a really steep growth curve, and you know, things get left behind. So when we plugged into Fair Farms, it sort of, you know, it dragged us back up a bit. So we're more compliant now. I always want to do the right thing by everyone. I want to do the right thing by my workers, and I like to sleep at night. So, you know, I really don't want to go to bed thinking, is, you know, Fair Work going to turn up?
Yeah.
I just like to sleep.
Yeah.
I don't want any worries. I've got enough worries being a farmer, let alone worrying about compliance or,
Yeah.
you know, at some point, you know, Fair Work would come in, or OH&S, or all of that sort of stuff. I really don't want to spend my time worrying about it.
Yep.
So we've got a framework now where we understand a bit more on what we've got to do.
Yeah.
We've been really lucky as a business. We've had people in our business for 10 years and we've never had a claim. So that's a testament to either luck or
good practice.
well, there's a bit of both, I think.
Yeah.
Yep. But
Or good systems in place, yeah.
Yeah,
and I
but
think
it
also
wasn't
too,
formalised.
staff retention really helps with that as well. You know, if you've got a changeover all the time, you're at risk of incidents on farm. Whereas,
Absolutely.
you know, if you've got a good, stable core amount of people, it starts to develop a really good culture
Yeah.
and a safety culture as well.
Like Abby indicated before, doing the Fair Farms certification, it helped us find the gaps
Yeah.
in what we're already doing.
And you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. So, and I've always said, you know, during an audit, we hope that they don't find anything, but I'm not complaining that they do, because that highlights the gaps that we have within our system, then we can fix them.
Yeah.
You know, as I said, you know what you know and you don't what you don't.
Yep. Yep.
So
Car isn't a slight on
No.
business, it's an opportunity.
opportunity for improvement.
Yep.
And that's what we
Yeah.
say all the time with our business. One of the new guys I got on board there, it's his common saying, it's an opportunity for improvement.
Yeah,
You know,
it
it's up
is.
to us whether we choose to take it or not.
Yeah, and I think the tricky part, especially with the people side of things, is the raft of changes that have come through in that HR/IR space to absolutely try and keep across every single
You can never
legislative
know it all.
change.
It's too much.
How on earth do you know it all unless
Yeah.
you have got someone dedicated to spending their time
Absolutely.
to actually really keeping
And that's not our core business. Our core business is growing vegetables.
correct, exactly right.
You know?
So in that instance, do you think a certification program like Fair Farms, from a people perspective, has benefited keeping you up to date with any kind of changes, or has it made you more aware that there's lots of changes and you really need to stay on
It's
top of
definitely
it?
made us go looking for those changes,
Yeah,
because you know that it's going to be part of your audits, part of the stuff you need to be aware of.
yeah,
So, yeah, you find that rather than turn left, turn right, and just go worry about your vegetables, you've also got to worry about your people
yeah,
and the systems in place for them.
yeah, that's it.
So,
It gives you the resource to go to as well, to get that information.
Mm.
I also utilise the industry body emails, because they're always full of changes that are coming up.
Yeah,
And with the PALM scheme, we're part of an approved employers association, so they also send out updates. I do have a lot of emails to read, but I do find it's really worthwhile that if you utilise those sources,
yeah.
you can stay on top of things.
So thinking about that and saying that you've got a lot of emails to read and there is always change, do you have a system for managing those changes, or do you have a system for managing
Delete
those?
button.
Yeah, okay. I only
read
deal
it.
with the
After
top
you've read it.
priorities, right? Okay, gotcha. Yeah,
I think for me, I'll skim read them and pick out the bits that I think are important to
Yep.
us, and then read more into it, and then pass it to the most appropriate person within the business.
yeah, yeah. It's just
Yeah.
being aware and being across what's happened. And Wayne, you're not immune from it. You've got people, so you know it's not whether it's organic specific or conventional. It is a people business that we're actually in. Who
We are under the same IR laws. and
we are. That's right. Whether we like it or not, we absolutely are. We did speak a little bit earlier about the good players and the good actors within this business, the good businesses who are burdened by compliance requirements. A lot of that social compliance has been driven by market access into the retailers. We know that the food safety compliance aspect is was originally driven obviously from a food safety perspective, but is being picked up by government regulation now. How do you see that we can get improvement overall within the industry? Because the people who want to do good are doing good. How do we elevate, or how do we get the bad actors on board? Because they, from what I've heard, are tending to slip under the net scot-free. And how do we
comes
bring
back to
them
the
into a
customer.
compliance framework?
The customer has to want that to happen.
Right.
Ultimately, I mean, we're doing our bit. We're supplying the retailers and the consumer, but the retailers in our industry, or the end users with our industry, have really going to be positive about wanting that to happen. We can't force that change ourselves. They've got to force that by restricting access.
Yeah.
Without that compliance.
Yeah.
So
can you give me some examples of how you're seeing that happen on the ground? You're obviously a tier 1 supplying direct into the majors. We know that some tier 2 suppliers are also in a social compliance program supplying into the majors, but there seems to be another sub-market that is not in the compliance network.
There are growers out there that aren't compliant, so to speak.
Yep.
And their product is ending up on the same shelf as mine. All right, and that's the concern that we have as an industry, that they're not being picked up.
Yep.
Now, we've got a new food safety program coming on board in February, which is legislated nationally. So our hope is that they actually are truly active in that space and picking up the people that aren't compliant in that food safety space.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that are potentially going to cause our industry a problem. You know, we're doing the right thing. We're meeting all our MRLs. We're complying with food safety, but they're the ones they're going to farmers markets, or they're supplying shops through the back door, or wherever it might be, that aren't compliant to that food safety standard.
And if there is a risk with that produce,
the industry's branded with that brush across the board.
That's right.
I mean, we saw that. We saw that. In the past, where one grower's had a problem, but the whole industry's been branded with it.
Yeah.
So the concern is that in the food safety space, that they're not, and I'll say government, because they're the ones that are managing the scheme, aren't going to be active enough in picking those fringe players up. And we're tarnished with the brush of being have to comply with that, because we're big players in the industry, or anyone who's certified will have to comply.
Yeah.
The same applies with ethical standards. There's people out there that aren't complying with the same standards we are, yet we're competing in the same marketplace.
Yeah. So how do we address that as a problem? If we know that if all of the good businesses are doing the right thing, they're the ones who are also shouldering a lot of the cost as well for compliance and for the audits. How do we have a safety net around the ones who aren't yet compliant and bring them on that journey? Number one, we can demystify compliance, because at the end of the day we embed it as natural business practice. But number two, there has to be a will to actually want to be compliant.
Absolutely.
And
The concern is that they don't want to be.
The
business
threatened.
model is to avoid that, because their IR practices are so far outside of the law. Their best bet is to fly under the radar like they do.
Yeah.
And the only way to bring them forward is market access.
Yeah.
If they're denied market access because they're not compliant, then they've got no choice but to change or get out.
Yeah.
So until that happens, it's going to continue to be a problem with our industry.
So when we talk about non-compliance in the HR/IR space, we know that Fair Work and Border Force go out and visit farms and will turn up often unannounced. And we know that if your systems are in place and you're robust enough, you can kind of, you're not going to have a heart attack on the spot. You'll still get an elevated heart rate, but you'll know that you're doing the right thing and that your paperwork is in order to be able to be checked for
They're visiting
compliance.
the wrong farms. That's the plain fact of it.
So how do we suggest that compliance is a shared responsibility?
Well, Fair Farms have a register of growers that
We do.
are members and
Yes.
certified. So, do they need to visit those growers? Not really, because they've already ticked the box. They're certified.
Yeah.
All right. So, who are they talking to when they go and visit growers? Are they communicating with Fair Farms? Or are they looking at your website and your register saying, well, these guys, I've got a list of growers, but these are all certified, so I'll worry about the rest of them.
Yeah.
But they're not. They're going to the ones that are certified and forgetting about the little ones that aren't.
Yeah. Do they even know about the little ones?
Well, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Or do they want to know about them?
If they're hiding in the shadows, how do we bring them into the light?
Correct.
Yeah.
I suspect they're picking the low-hanging fruit by going for the certified ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes their KPIs look really good.
Yeah, and there's a ready-made list.
Yep.
Yeah. But at the same time, I suppose it comes down to a responsibility where if we know something's not being done correctly in business and people aren't being paid appropriately, do we have a responsibility to report on that so that something can be done so industry isn't tarnished?
Unfortunately, industry has that, let's not be a dobber scenario. But that's changing slowly. People are starting to get fed up with the fact that we are having to compete on the shelf with the non-compliant grower.
It's a competitive advantage. At the end
It
of the
is.
day, your product costs you more to produce. It's just as simple as that versus someone who's not going through a compliance framework
Absolutely.
of any kind of compliance. There is a competitive advantage there. So I would think to level the playing field, really, is it not if
Comes
we
back to market access.
yeah.
It does.
Comes back to market access.
Yep.
Limit market access, they've got no choice but to comply.
Mm.
An example of that is there was a pallet of spinach at the market in our boxes, bunching spinach, palletised to look like it was our pallet of spinach. It was not our spinach in the boxes. So those boxes could have gone out to any veggie seller, and if there had been something wrong, it would have fallen back on us.
Wow.
So they're trading on our name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So food fraud.
Yeah.
Really,
Yes,
at the end of the
yes.
day, it's second-hand boxes. Then I'm imagining you wouldn't have, you would notice if a stack of boxes went missing.
I'm
I
all
hope.
for recycling,
Yes.
but it can't be the same product in that box.
Yeah, sure.
Correct.
If it was
There
pumpkins, no problem.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
We see that every day in the market where second-hand boxes it's big business.
Yeah.
But as Abby said, that's fine as long as it's not the same product that we've sold originally in that box.
Yeah.
So my lettuce box with herbs in it, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it.
Yep.
When I see a celery box with celery in it,
Yep.
on the Sydney market, for
concerning.
instance,
Yeah.
And you know it's not come
as we've
from
seen in
you.
the past, and it's not
Yeah.
our celery, that's a problem.
Yeah, it is a major
Yeah.
problem, and it speaks to food fraud. And you know, you
Absolutely.
can't say it's not happening. You know, it is there. So, as growers, what are some of the emerging trends that you're starting to hear of or see, or what do you think is actually going to be on the future landscape for the hort industry? We know that social compliance has now been around, you know, sort of that 2019 we came into play or so. Are we looking at additional environmental standards? I think, Abby, that's why you sort of said that you'd flag that this is going to be a
Yes,
requirement. So let's
that's
get
what
a
I'm hearing.
start
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Carbon accounting as well is one that I've heard. However, I have spoken to a grower that did go down that road
Yeah.
and became carbon neutral, and the cost was so far out of his range that he could manage it for 3 years, and then yeah. So it needs to be cost effective as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just don't think we're ready for that yet.
Yeah. I don't think environmental requirements are going to go by the wayside at all. though.
No.
No, you just got to look at what's coming out of Europe at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got the sustainability pillars, and a lot of ESG programs are starting to get rolled out. You know, particularly certain industries are starting to roll them out for their industry, just to keep the doors open for their markets.
Yeah.
There's going to be a requirement. What it's going to look like in horticulture, I'm not 100% sure yet. But you know, maybe the likes of Ozveg or someone want to get on the front foot and develop a program.
Yep.
Give you something to do, Paul.
Thanks.
Something relevant. Not like he needs any more work.
Yep, but it's certainly out there, and a lot of other industries are certainly a lot more advanced than horticulture is at the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. It's another layer of complexity. It's how do we manage it? So, Paul, what advice do you have when you sort of hear that there is an environmental wave that's going to start coming through for businesses out there who are already struggling with managing compliance? How would you embed a new program into your business? What would you suggest?
Cautiously.
Cautiously, okay,
to
sure.
start with.
Yep.
I mean, it comes back to necessity, and is it going to be an advantage to market access? I mean, Wayne, indicated earlier. If the retailers are going to start asking for an environmental part of our program, I only hope it gets incorporated into our existing systems,
Yeah.
not another
Not
audit.
not
again,
another bolt-on, which
another-
is something totally
another
different.
separate audit again.
Yeah.
I mean, the more we can combine the stuff that we're doing, I'm not going to say it's going to be easier, but the more manageable it becomes.
Yeah.
I only wish I could say that by adding these programs, we add value to our product.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I don't think we do. It's just it becomes a requirement. It's not something we can ask more money for, and that's the sad part about it. It's a cost burden, but it's not a cost we can pass on.
Yeah.
So again, it's all going to come back down to market access. If we need to have that system in place to have market access because our customers have required it, then it's obviously going to be something we're going to have to look at.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the whole landscape could change around that. I mean, at some point, everyone's got their own little phones, and we talk about it at ACO around what's it look like in 5 or 10 years, and if you're creating carbon credits on your product, and it's worth a few carbon credits, and whether that's tracked and it's applied to that product, and when the consumer buys that, that's a benefit for them. They'll actually own that carbon credit, and that's another way these things sort of evolve.
Okay, they're tradable.
Tradable, yeah, potentially. It might not happen at all, but certainly there's people doing the maths on these sort of things and trying to build these sort of systems.
Yeah.
So it's all part of that, keeping the doors open, having somewhere to send your product, like keeping the doors open.
Yeah.
So like you said, it's not going to give us any more money. It's not going to make us any richer or anything like that. It's another level of burden, but it keeps us in business.
And I think that's what we all know, is that compliance isn't going to go anywhere at all. We just need to find a way, and I think, Paul, the word that you used was make it manageable. We all know we need to undertake some level of compliance or multiple layers of compliance. How do we do it so that we can manage it on a regular basis where it doesn't become too onerous? And whether that's through staffing systems, software systems, or apps. So just to recap, Soho is one that you recommend, 37
South.
37 South, and on-side, and yours was Live Farmer as well. Yeah, fabulous. Anything else that you can think of that's in the background? Do you use anything to manage your people? Do you use any HR systems at all, as far as employee data files, employee self-service, they can log on and request their own leave? Have you got anything like that set up for your staff?
Clock cards and
Timesheets to clock in and out
things
of?
like that. I mean, electrifying that or bringing it into computerising that makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, yeah.
But again, it all comes down to size of workforce that you need to do that with. So for us, we went away from timesheets a long time ago, and that's made it far more manageable. I mean, there's lots of systems out there.
We looked at having kiosks on each farm for people to check in and out, but it wasn't cost effective for us at the time, so it's something to revisit a bit further down the track.
But that's something on-side can actually help you manage.
They can, yes.
So there's new systems coming into play now which can help with that sort of thing, and at a small scale as well, which is quite achievable.
And as long as the price is affordable, for the size of the business, I think that, and that's the benefit about technology, isn't it? The longer we go on, the more things are developed, the more cost effective they can actually become. It's just getting used to, I've got to do something new, I've got to change, I've got to accept a new process, and then I've got to embed it successfully. Yeah.
And that's the thing with technology now, that it's getting cheaper. There's more options out there, and it's becoming more accessible to those smaller operators as well, which is something that, you know, as an industry we're very conscious about, that they also need access to these
Absolutely.
these resources.
Yeah.
You know,
And they might be small operators, but they might use a large temporary seasonal workforce, you know, to get their crops off or whatever the case might be. They still have
we
some
need to be able to
timesheets
give
to
them
manage.
access to some form of technology to help,
Yeah.
whatever it might be, or resource, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as part of our regular sessions for Fair Talk, we actually have our viewers submit questions that they would like to ask of our panellists. We've had around about 8 so far that we've had come through. Some of them we've addressed in our chat today. And some of it, one I'd like to bring up is we've seen and heard about Border Force, Fair Work and other food safety programs simply dropping by unannounced. And we've heard that different departments within Border Force also drop by without knowing that the other one was there. From your point of view, have you had any experience where you've had government departments or food safety or social compliance drop in unannounced? And how did you manage that? Were you comfortable in that space that your paperwork was in order? Was it just a random, hey, I'm here in the local area, I'm just coming to have a cup of coffee with you? Or
We've had a few random visits, and I've spoken to other growers that have also been recently visited.
Yep.
And yes, as much it was a heart in mouth experience when you see all these people roll up in black cars. They were comforted by the fact that they had their information. They had to scramble around to find it, but it was there because they had those systems in place.
Yeah.
So for them, it's moments like that I suppose reality kicks in and goes, it's worth having.
Yep.
All right, because it's not till that time happens that you think, what am I doing this for? But yeah, everyone went away happy. Maybe they had to provide a little bit of information after the event, which is not something
Normal.
that's
Yep.
normal. But other than that, all in the clear.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's moments like that the certification and you know, with Fair Farms or whatever the system might be comes to the fore.
I think it's being able to put your hands on the information in a timely manner, isn't it? That it's not something that you leave until, you know, the last minute of the last day. You're comfortable in having those conversations with that documentation.
Your systems are in place.
That's exactly right. The regulatory and compliance burden versus benefits. This is probably a really short and sweet question that was submitted, but the burden of compliance versus the benefit of compliance.
I think you just demonstrated the benefit.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
in a
that's one of the
nutshell,
benefits.
yeah.
And look, over the years, QA's probably shown us quite a few benefits over the years, just in systems and the way we operate on farm now. You know, with the ethical side of things with Fair Farms, that example we just gave is a prime one. You know, being ready for those moments, I suppose, or like I said, God forbid, there's an accident on farm and work cover comes on site. You know,
How do you demonstrate?
Correct.
Yeah.
Having
Where's
all
your
of that
training
stuff
records?
in place is critical. It really is.
Yeah.
You know, so it's important. It's not till you need it that you realise.
It's like insurance, right?
Absolutely.
You begrudge paying it, but it's when you need it that you're like, thank goodness I paid that premium on time.
Absolutely.
I get asked that question all the time. Why do I need to do that? Because we need to prove that we've thought about it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
But that's not going to happen. You don't know.
Yeah.
It's happened somewhere.
Yeah.
It has. Any insights from you, Wayne? Any last minute thoughts on the compliance burden versus the compliance benefit? Yours is always about market access, is what I hear from you.
Well, that's how it
for
has
you, that's
been
what's
for
the
me.
driver. Yep.
Yeah, and it's that is exactly what it is for me.
Yep.
You
And
know,
sleep. I heard you say it helps you sleep at night.
helps me sleep at night.
Sure, that's not the Scotch.
That sometimes. Yeah, look, particularly organics. That there's a clear and obvious benefit there. It's I get a premium on the products. Not too many certifications actually add a premium, but organics is one of those ones that actually does. The other ones are just, you know, keep the doors open, and you know you build a better product. when you start doing all these things to a system. A little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer, and you can do it cheap and nasty, but you build your professionalism with it. You can build your professionalism around certain standards.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. Well, Wayne, Abby, Paul, thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on here today. I really appreciate you sharing your insights and experience with our viewers, and I hope that they're forever grateful in you telling them stories about what you actually do on your farms. I think it's great to be able to hear from a peer who's doing the same work on a day-to-day basis, who faces the same sorts of challenges. So, and thank you to those who have joined us from your offices today. We thank you for having joined us through 2024 and for this last episode of Fair Talk by Fair Farms. We look forward to joining you again in early next year in 2025, and we'd like to say goodbye for now and thank you.